Okay, so I'm going to speak a little bit on the Leno Labianca case and the Tate case. And originally, when Sharon Tate allegedly was murdered, people just called it the Tate case. And the Tate case encompassed all the murders. Sharon Tate, Wojtek Frykowski, Abigail Folger, Stephen Parent, and Jay Sebring. Now, Sharon Tate, of course, is an actress. Jay Sebring was an actor. Wojtek Frykowski, an actor. Stephen Parent, an actor. Oh yeah, and Abigail Folger. Abigail Folger was the heiress to the Folger coffee fortune. So these were all prominent or leaning towards prominent figures in the motion picture industry. Jay Sebring ran a hair salon. He made a lot of money. People like Nicholas Schreck have done some interesting work on the case. His book, Manson, Charles Manson, Outlaw Shaman or Outlaw Shaman. I can't remember the exact title of the book, but I read the book a few years ago, the revised version, the bigger version. I read the old version and the revised version, and I seen his documentary that he did on Charles. I seen a documentary he did on Charles Manson, and with Charles Manson, we went to go visit Charles Manson. So my feeling on the Tate case is it's a sham. You know, after watching that documentary called "The Monsters Have Duped Us Again" with Miles Mathis and all that, I put together the Labianca case with the war written. The war was written in marker, and I sit here and I look at these people who are involved with all this, and nobody ever talks about, like, when it comes to the Labianca case, one of the first things that come up is the straight Satans with Danny DiCarlo, and they're from Venice Beach. And of course, they were all Italian. Danny DiCarlo was Italian. The Straight Satans were an Italian motorcycle gang out of Venice Beach. And so Tex Watson and Danny DiCarlo and all these people, they all knew each other. And they all rode motorcycles and dune buggies. And dope was involved and girls were involved. And Bruce Davis, who went to the joint for the alleged murder of Shorty Shea, was involved with all these people as well. And then you had numerous different people coming and going from Spawn Ranch. Brooks Poston, who never went to jail for anything involved with the Manson family. He did music with the Manson family, and I listened to some of his interviews on the CLODrive.com. One of his interviews on the CLODrive.com, where he gave an interview with the police back in '69. I think it was the Inyakern police, I believe. Out there, they were out there by China Lake, out there in Death Valley by China Lake, and I think the whole thing was a sham. I don't think Manson ordered any murders on anybody, at least not the Tate people. I think the Tate group, you know, her and all her friends, I think they faked their death. And I think the Labianca case was a sham. If Leno Labianca did die and he was murdered, regardless if it happened in his home or not in his home, I don't believe for a second that Tex Watson or that girl Leslie Van Houten did it. You know, and whoever did it, the police forged the crime scene. They forged evidence because you had 7 detectives working in the Leno Labianca case, and in 1969, you had 49 homicide detectives. Back when this murder occurred, you had 49 homicide detectives working in the LA area. And this happened in the Los Felix area, and you had 7 detectives working in the Labianca case alone, not the Tate case, just the Labianca case alone. You had 7 detectives working that case. 2 detectives that worked that case also worked the Sirhan assassination of Bobby Kennedy, or alleged assassination. Who knows what happened? But okay, so that being said, there was marker written on Leno Labianca's stomach. The fork changes colors. There's a fork in the evidence locker that's blue with pictures of white flowers, like an outline of white flowers. Then the original photographs of the case had a fork with a white handle on it. So we're not really sure what exactly happened. You know, was Leno Labianca murdered, then brought back to his home, and the cops covered it up, or was he not murdered at all, just like the Tate family? The way Roman Polanski acted about the Sharon Tate thing was really weird. You could tell that he was faking what he was doing. Like, he knew there was something going on, he knew there was something wrong, and he didn't come off he either came off in one or two ways to me. He came off like he was involved in it, or he came off like he was covering up for something. And a lot of people say, well, it had to do with the drugs. Everybody wanted to cover up for the drugs. You know, when that many people are murdered, nobody gives a fuck about who's on drugs or not. You know, if my wife or one of my friends or some, you know, some associate of mine, her and her whole family were butchered, the last thing I'd be concerned with is their reputations in drugs. You know what I mean? I guess at that time the world was a lot more conservative and they had to hide things, but at that point, you know, no one, you know, people have been murdered. Who cares who's on drugs or not? You know, and so anyhow, so that whole case just never sat with me. The Manson case, the Leno Labianca, and Rudy Altobelli owned the home, and just the way it was carried after that. And Roman Polanski, when the LAPD interviewed him, he was talking about he thought, what did he say? He was saying he thought it was devil magic or devil witchcraft or whatever that was involved in it. Sharon Tate was in a lot of spooky movies, a lot of Eye of the Devil, and that last movie she made, 13 Chairs, was strange. I thought that was really, they had her in some strange stuff. And so, you know, and they looked like they were wearing masks. The Manson family, if you go back and you look at the death pictures, you can tell the pictures look fake. Like Sharon Tate was even smiling in one of the pictures. And then when you look at Abigail Folger's face, it looks like a mask. It looks like Hollywood makeup artists created a mask for them. Just like I talked about the Jones in the Pavilion with Jim Jones in the People's Temple. You know, those old prosthetic masks that CIA agents and KGB agents wore during the Cold War. Professional bank robbers wear them. Prosthetic fake masks. Like what on the movie Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams dressed up like Mrs. Doubtfire and wore that mask and all that stuff. You know, that's what was going on with that Tate case. These people had fake makeup on their face to make it seem like they were dead at the scene. That's just what I see. And if you go back and you really study the case, you know, you can see Tate's father was in the military. What was he, a colonel or something, lieutenant colonel or whatever, in the army. And he looked like he had an investment in it. And going back to what I was saying about Tex Watson, so if Roman Polanski had been in on it, Doris Tate would have said something about it. Doris Tate was too involved with that whole thing, too involved with the case. Like, she was an advocate for her daughter's rights and all this stuff for years. And if she knew that Roman Polanski was involved in it, she would have said something. I think the whole thing was an operation. You know, which is sad. Because who's the real victim in the case? If you really think about it, who would be the real victim? It'd be, you know, what did Charles Manson know? What didn't he know? How long was he actually locked up? Why did he go along with it? Which is kind of scary because Manson worked with a lot of other groups. Manson worked with, you know, the Aryan Brotherhood, other biker gangs and stuff. You know, that'd be something they don't want getting out if it turns out that Manson was spying on people and giving information to the government or something. I'm not saying he did. I'm not saying he did that. I don't know. Of course, I don't know who he is. I never met him. I just know him from books and hearing the stories. But there's something weird about that case, though. Like that Spawn Ranch raid, how none of the police had the same uniforms on and stuff. Something weird with all that stuff.